Welcome to Stoic Courage, where silence speaks louder than desire. Desire was never yours. It felt personal, but it was programmed, fed to you by a world that profits from your longing. They told you desire is life, but the Stoics knew better. Unexamined desire is slavery. You're not chasing what you truly want. You're chasing what you were taught to crave. It's time to wake up. 1. The illusion of desire. You think desire is something natural, something human, something that makes life worth living. They taught you that without desire, you're empty. But here's the truth no one told you. You're not following your desires. You're following someone else's design. Every craving you have, that girl you can't stop thinking about, that car you can't afford but still fantasize owning, that body you're killing yourself in the gym to build. They didn't come from you. They were planted, injected, engineered. You didn't desire her smile. You desired the status she represents. You didn't want that car. You wanted the validation that comes with it. You didn't chase that six-pack for health. You wanted to feel seen. Desire, in the modern world, is not an expression of your will. It's a reaction, a stimulus-response loop you've been conditioned to repeat since childhood. Scroll, like, compare, see what others have. And suddenly, your life feels like it's missing something. That's not desire. That's programming. You were born free. But somewhere between your first phone and your last breakup, you became a prisoner of imagined needs, a slave to artificial hunger. And the worst part? You call it motivation. The world has sold you a lie, that to want more is to be ambitious. But here's what the Stoics knew. To want less is to be powerful. Because when you desire nothing, you're untouchable. You can't be manipulated by ads, by thirst traps, by promises of fame or fortune. You're no longer chasing, you're choosing. And that's where the fear begins. Not your fear, theirs. They can't sell to a man who's content. They can't control a man who isn't hungry. So they keep you craving, scrolling, fantasizing, wanting. But what happens when one day you stop? 2. The addiction to dopamine and emotional highs. Let's be honest, it's not sex, not money, not even women. The real addiction is dopamine, that small hit of excitement, a rush, a thrill, the chemical whisper that something good is just around the corner. That's what keeps modern men chasing. That little surge explains why the phone lights up and hands move instantly, why swiping becomes a habit, why there's pursuit without passion, and spending without purpose. It's not about needing any of it. It's about chasing the spike. And here's the bitter truth. The spike never lasts. It always fades. The woman once worshipped, within weeks becomes familiar. The dream car loses its shine in months. Those likes and follows always feel a little less satisfying than the last time. But still, the cycle repeats. Scroll again, chase again, another hit, another high, all in search of a feeling, not a goal. This isn't ambition, it's dependency. Dopamine fires before anything is even achieved. Not the reward, but the anticipation creates the high. So most are stuck chasing shadows, climbing ladders that lead nowhere, running on full stomachs, yet always starving. The Stoics saw through this illusion centuries ago. No social media, no endless novelty, but the same human wiring and the same vulnerability to emotional highs. Any man who hinges his peace on a feeling is already handing over his power. Because the moment peace is tied to pleasure, Control belongs to whoever provides that pleasure. Marcus Aurelius didn't preach indifference out of apathy. He preached it from discipline. Be indifferent to what makes no difference, he wrote. Not to numb the soul, but to protect it from manipulation. Feel bored? Let the boredom pass. Feel lonely? Sit with the loneliness. Desire rising? Watch it. Don't act. By refusing to react, power is reclaimed, sovereignty is restored, and something shifts. Instead of being emotionally hijacked, there is emotional command. The one who governs his dopamine is no longer governed by the world. Energy flows where intention leads, not where temptation pulls. And actions begin to align with values, not with cravings. That's when something incredible happens. The high disappears, and clarity takes its place. Stillness returns, power sharpens, and for the first time, freedom feels real. 3. The modern man, overstimulated, undercentered, and spiritually starving. In today's world, everything is loud. Advertisements scream. Notifications never stop. Even silence feels like a luxury now. Modern men are bombarded daily, not by bullets, but by urges. To click, to scroll, to chase, to prove, to be something for someone. But beneath all the stimulation, there's exhaustion. Not physical, deeper than that. A kind of spiritual fatigue that builds when life is spent reacting instead of choosing. Step into any major city. The pace is relentless. The pressure to be seen, to succeed, to impress, constant. And for many men, performance has replaced presence. In dating, in work, even in self-improvement. It's often not about growth, but optics. Not about becoming, but broadcasting. Not about inner clarity, but outer validation. Ironically, the more a man performs, the more invisible he becomes to himself. He knows how to look confident, but not how to feel grounded. He knows what to post, what to flex, what to say, but when the screen turns off, he doesn't know who's left, surrounded by everything promised to bring satisfaction. He still feels the lack. More women, more money, more upgrades. And still, something's missing, because it was never about the things. It was about the disconnect. Modern culture teaches men to chase identity through consumption. But masculinity isn't found in accumulation. It's found in essence, in depth, in stillness, in knowing what not to pursue. That's why the Stoics saw desire not as power, but as vulnerability. To be always wanting is to be always weakened. Real strength doesn't perform. It doesn't shout. It doesn't need applause. It moves with calm. It chooses with care. And it walks away when the noise gets too loud. The modern man doesn't need more stimulation. He needs stillness. Not more rewards, but more restraint. Not more motivation, but more meaning. Not to become passive, but to become unshakable. 4th, Stoic clarity. Desire isn't the enemy, but it isn't the master. Desire is not evil. The Stoics never said that. They didn't tell men to become cold statues or lifeless monks. What they taught was control. Desire becomes dangerous when it becomes the master, when it hijacks action, when it drives a man to chase without choosing. That's when it quietly destroys him. Not all at once, but piece by piece. A life led by desire is a life lived in reaction, not in principle, not in truth, just motion without direction. The Stoic doesn't kill desire. He studies it, questions it, strips it bare, and asks, where did this come from? Is this truly mine? Will this serve me or enslave me? That's the clarity the modern man needs. Because in today's world, desire is everywhere, but identity is lost. Most men don't want what they want. They want what others have, or what society has told them they should want. So they chase status instead of self, lust instead of love, attention instead of peace. And when they get it, they don't feel empowered. They feel emptier than before, because it was never their desire. It was their programming. Stoic philosophy doesn't say, don't want anything. It says, don't let anything own you. That's why Seneca wrote, "He who is a slave to his passions is more enslaved than the man in chains." The man in prison can still be free in mind, but the man addicted to his own impulses, he's caged from within. Freedom doesn't begin with achieving more. It begins with needing less. And when desire is no longer a storm, but a signal, it becomes useful. Not because it rules you, but because it reveals you. That's the shift, from being owned by what's tempting to owning what truly matters. Now life becomes simple, not easy, but clear. Because a man no longer runs from discomfort. He sits in it. He studies it. He uses it as a compass. There's no need to chase women, money, or power. When alignment itself feels better than all three combined, let others chase the spark. The Stoic walks in the dark and doesn't fear it, because he's lit the fire within. 5. Mastering desire. How to tell the difference. Not all desire is weakness. That's where most people get it wrong. There's a desire that corrupts, and a desire that calls a man towards something higher. One pulls from fear, the other rises from clarity. One says, "If I don't get this, I'm nothing." The other says, "Even without it, I remain whole." That's the difference, not in the intensity of the desire, but in where it's coming from. The Stoics never declared war on passion, they declared war on slavery. When a man wants something but remains centered without it, he's free. But when needing something becomes the condition for peace, that's captivity. Most modern cravings are noise, flickers of impulse, not born from soul, but from insecurity, comparison, and overstimulation. The need to prove, to be seen, to feel like someone. But real desire, meaningful desire, is quiet. It doesn't scream, it doesn't beg. It calls. It whispers through discomfort, through intuition, through the moments when silence brings answers instead of anxiety. Here's how to tell the difference. If it vanishes after you scroll away, it's noise. If it deepens when you're alone, it's worth listening to. If it demands validation, it's fragile. If it holds steady in silence, it's real. If it pulls you out of integrity, it's lust. If it pulls you deeper into alignment, it's purpose. That's the discipline. To feel everything but obey nothing blindly. The modern world teaches to follow every urge. Click, buy, swipe, chase. But ancient wisdom taught the opposite. Observe, question, wait. Not out of fear, but out of strength. Because the man who pauses before he moves is stronger than the one who reacts instantly. This isn't about suppressing fire. It's about containing it, so it doesn't burn the house down. Passion is beautiful, but when untamed, it becomes poison. When directed, it becomes power. That's why the Stoic doesn't kill desire. He shapes it, refines it, and channels it toward a life that cannot be bought or shaken. He knows the difference, and that difference makes all the difference. 6. From need to choice, the Stoic shift. Most people move because they're restless, because they want more money, more attention, more control. But movement doesn't always mean progress. Sometimes it's just noise. an escape from the silence they don't know how to sit with. The Stoic doesn't move because of lack. He moves from fullness, from alignment, from principle. He doesn't act because something's missing. He acts because something is clear. That's the shift, from being led by craving to being guided by conviction. Look around. The world is full of people running to prove, to impress, to avoid the discomfort of being still. But stillness is not emptiness. Stillness is power at rest. It's the discipline to wait, the strength to not be swayed by every trigger, the clarity to say no, not from fear, but from freedom. When a man no longer acts out of need, he becomes calm, dangerous, magnetic, because people can feel the difference. There's no hunger in his eyes, no grasping in his energy, only presence. And presence is rare. In a world addicted to noise, silence becomes sacred. And the man who can hold that silence owns every room he walks into. This is the Stoic shift, to be no longer reactive, but responsive, no longer needy, but deliberate, no longer led by dopamine, but by discipline. Now every move has weight, every word has meaning, every yes is chosen, every no is final. He doesn't seek attention, it seeks him. He doesn't chase respect, he embodies it, because he's not trying to become a man of value. He already is, and he lives like it. 7. When desire dies, something greater begins. There comes a moment when the noise fades, when the hunger quiets, when the chasing stops, and all that remains is presence. Not absence of feeling, but the presence of being, of not needing to prove, or persuade, or perform. Just being. Most never get there, because they keep running, because silence scares them, because stillness feels like death. But for the Stoic, that stillness is the beginning of life, a life unshaken, not because there's no storm, but because the storm no longer matters. A man who no longer craves is a man no longer owned, and in that freedom, he rediscovers his essence. No applause, no noise, no crowd, just a calm that cannot be taken away. Let others keep chasing. Let them scream. Let them prove. Let them burn. The Stoic walks away, not because he gave up, but because he no longer needs anything from the fire. If this brought you clarity or gave your mind a place to rest, feel free to like and subscribe, not for the numbers, but for the silence we're building.